All right, let's get ready to step into the ring because we're doing a deep dive on some of the most iconic knockout punches in boxing history. Not just talking about like the power, though. We're going to be looking at the stories behind them, the strategies, and how these punches really impacted the sport. You sent over some incredible research on iconic knockouts, and I'm really excited to unpack it all with you.
Well, what's really interesting about knockouts, especially the ones we're going to be talking about today, is that they often represent these really pivotal moments in boxing history. We're not just talking about, brute force here. We're talking about these knockouts showcasing the evolution of boxing styles, the personalities of the fighters. And
Mhm.
sometimes they even, reflect broader social and cultural narratives.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like each punch has its own backstory, its own context. That makes it even more powerful. So let's jump right in with a knockout that I think really embodies resilience and defying expectations. George Foreman's knockout of Michael Moore back in 1994. Now, most boxers at age 45 are enjoying retirement, but Foreman's stepping back into the ring against a much younger and faster champion.
It's pretty amazing. What makes this knockout so compelling is that Foreman had already been a world champion, 2 decades earlier. He was known for his raw power in his youth. But this time around, he developed a completely different style. He used his size and experience to kind of wear down his opponents, and he became a master of that rope-a-dope technique.
But it wasn't just about landing like one big punch. It was really a very calculated approach. Moore was known for his speed and agility, but Foreman's strategy really neutralized those advantages. And then that slow, deliberate right hand that connected with Moore's jaw in the 10th round, it was a statement. It was the culmination of Foreman's elite career transformation.
A culmination, absolutely. I mean, that punch was a testament to, Foreman's adaptability and his understanding of boxing as a strategic game. He didn't just rely on his old power. He reinvented himself to outsmart a younger, faster opponent. It's a knockout that speaks volumes about his intelligence as a boxer.
Yeah, it really highlights how experience and strategy can really sometimes trump just pure, youthful athleticism. Speaking of raw athleticism, though, let's shift gears to a knockout defined by, I think, sheer explosiveness. Mike Tyson's uppercut KO of Michael Spinks in 1988. This wasn't even a fight. This was a demolition.
Yeah, I mean, this knockout was really a culmination of hype and anticipation.
Mm.
Tyson in his prime was a spectacle, an embodiment of raw power and aggression. Spinks, though, undefeated, a skilled boxer, seemed almost paralyzed by Tyson's intimidation factor even before the bell rang.
Right. It was almost like the fight was over before it even began. The atmosphere, the tension, it all played a role, I think, in the impact of that knockout. And then, bam, that short left uppercut delivered with lightning speed ended the fight in just 91 seconds.
It's amazing. And what's remarkable is how Tyson combined his physical gifts with strategic brilliance. His trainer, Cus D'Amato, had instilled in him that peekaboo style, which emphasized head movement, bobbing and weaving to create openings for those devastating power punches.
So it wasn't just blind aggression. There was actually like a method to the madness. That uppercut wasn't just about power. It was about perfect timing and exploiting Spinks's momentary lapse in defense. I think it really highlights Tyson's evolution as a boxer under D'Amato's tutelage.
Absolutely. Tyson wasn't just throwing bombs out there, he was a calculated destroyer. Now let's switch gears again and talk about a knockout that surprised a lot of people. Thomas Hearns' right-hand knockout of Roberto Duran in 1984. Hearns the Hitman was known for his long reach and his technical boxing, but few expected him to, knock out Duran, who was a legendary brawler known for his granite chin and his relentless pressure fighting style.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets really interesting. Because on paper, you wouldn't think Hearns had the power to stop Duran. But that right hand in the second round, it was like a laser beam finding its target. Duran, who had rarely been knocked down, was out cold before he hit the canvas.
It was brutal, and this knockout really shattered preconceived notions about Hearns. I mean, he was a natural welterweight moving up in weight to challenge Duran, and people underestimated his power at the higher weight class. That knockout proved that Hearns wasn't just a technician. He had devastating one-punch knockout power, especially when he could utilize his reach and timing to their fullest.
Right, and it also shows how a fighter style can evolve.
Mhm.
Hearns, known for being more of an outside fighter, showed he could be just as dangerous on the inside, catching Duran off guard with that perfectly timed counterpunch. It's a great example of how adapting to your opponent's style can really lead to a spectacular finish.
Precisely. It's about exploiting weaknesses and creating opportunities. Now, in contrast to Hearns' power, let's dive into a knockout that's all about artistry and precision. Sugar Ray Robinson's left hook against Gene Fullmer in 1957. Robinson was a master boxer. known for his speed, his footwork, and his elegant style.
He was nicknamed Sugar for a reason, right? His boxing was sweet to watch, all about finesse and skill. This knockout wasn't about brute force. It was a masterpiece of technique and timing.
It really was, and Robinson's left hook that ended the fight in the 5th round was a textbook example of how to generate power through perfect form and leverage. He didn't just overpower Fulmer, he outclassed him. Robinson used his footwork to create an angle, slipped under Fulmer's jab, and delivered that devastating left hook with his entire body weight behind it.
Yeah, it's like watching a perfectly choreographed dance, with every movement leading to that final impactful strike. It wasn't just a knockout, it was a clinic on how to execute a punch with maximum efficiency and grace.
Yeah. And this is where Robinson's genius truly shines. He wasn't just a powerful puncher. He was a master of the sweet science, a boxer who understood the nuances of angles, timing, and leverage. It's a knockout that elevates boxing to an art form.
Absolutely. And speaking of boxing as an art form, let's move on to Manny Pacquiao's explosive left straight against Ricky Hatton in 2009. This fight was a clash of styles, with Pacquiao's speed and ferocity going up against Hatton's toughness and determination.
Oh, yeah, this was a good one. This knockout showcased Pacquiao's unique blend of speed, power, and accuracy. He was a southpaw, which already gave him a strategic advantage, and he used that southpaw stance to land that devastating left straight in the 2nd round. It was a punch that Hatton, known for his ability to take a punch, simply couldn't recover from.
Right. It was like a lightning-fast strike that caught Hatton totally off guard. I remember watching that fight. And even though Hatton was known for his granite chin, that punch was just too perfectly placed and too powerful to withstand. And it solidified Pacquiao's reputation as one of the most exciting and dangerous fighters of his generation.
Absolutely. And what's remarkable about Pacquiao is that he didn't just rely on his natural athleticism. He was a technically gifted boxer who constantly evolved and refined his style. That left straight wasn't just a lucky punch. It was the product of years of training and honing his skills.
Right. A testament to Pacquiao's dedication to the sport and his ability to constantly improve.
Yeah.
It's also a reminder that in boxing, a single perfectly executed punch can change the entire course of a fight. And that's what keeps us glued to the screen, right? The anticipation, the tension, and the knowledge that anything can happen in a split second. We'll be back with more incredible knockouts after a short break.
Can't wait. We'll be exploring knockouts that are not only visually stunning, but also reveal the strategic brilliance, the historical context, and the personal narratives that make boxing so captivating. Welcome back to our deep dive into boxing's most iconic knockout punches. You know what's striking about the knockouts we've seen so far is that they're not just isolated moments of impact. Each one tells a story, revealing something unique about the fighters you know, the evolution of boxing styles, and sometimes even the social and political landscape of their time.
That's a great point. And speaking of stories, our next knockout is all about redemption. Lennox Lewis's right-hand knockout of Hasim Rahman in 2001. Now, remember, Lewis had suffered a shocking upset loss to Rahman earlier that year, losing his heavyweight titles in the process. This rematch was a chance to reclaim his crown and prove he was still the king.
Definitely. This knockout was a masterclass in strategy and patience. Lewis, known for his technical boxing skills and calculated approach, had studied Rahman's style extensively. He knew that Rahman had a tendency to lunge in with his punches, leaving himself open for counterattacks.
So Lewis wasn't just relying on his power. He was setting a trap, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash that devastating right hand. And when that moment came in the 4th round, he didn't miss. It was a perfectly timed, perfectly placed punch that sent Rahman crashing to the canvas.
Oh yeah, he went down hard. That knockout was a statement, a declaration that Lewis was still the top dog in the heavyweight division. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about reasserting his dominance, proving that the previous loss was a fluke, and cementing his legacy as one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time.
Yeah, it was a powerful moment. It's amazing how Lewis was able to channel his frustration from the previous loss into such a focused and calculated performance. He didn't let emotions get the better of him. He used them to fuel his strategy and deliver a knockout that was both technically brilliant and emotionally satisfying.
Absolutely. It really shows his mental toughness and his ability to learn from his mistakes. He analyzed his previous fight, identified Rahman's weaknesses, and exploited them perfectly. Now let's step back in time to a knockout that transcends the sport itself. Joe Louis's victory over Max Schmeling in 1938. This fight was more than just a boxing match. It was a clash of ideologies, a symbol of hope and defiance for a nation grappling with the rise of Nazi Germany.
This is where boxing becomes more than just entertainment, right? It becomes a reflection of the times, a stage for social and political narratives to play out. Louis the Brown Bomber represented the strength and resilience of a nation facing a global threat. Schmeling, despite being personally opposed to the Nazi regime, was seen as a symbol of German power.
Yeah, he was a powerful symbol. The pressure on Louis was immense. He carried the weight of expectations not just for the boxing world, but for an entire nation yearning for a symbol of hope. And Louis delivered. His performance in that fight was a display of controlled aggression, culminating in a crushing knockout in the first round.
Wow, it was over quickly. That knockout wasn't just about physical dominance. It was a symbolic victory for America, a blow against the rising tide of fascism. It was a moment that transcended sport, uniting the nation in a collective sense of pride and relief.
Really an important fight historically. It's a reminder that boxing can be a powerful platform for social change, a way to address issues of race, politics, and national identity. And it highlights the role of athletes as symbols, carrying the hopes and aspirations of their communities. Now let's shift gears to a knockout that showcases raw, unadulterated power. Julian Jackson's right hand against Terry Norris in 1989.
Jackson was known as a one-punch knockout artist, and this fight perfectly exemplified that reputation. Norris was a skilled boxer, known for his speed and agility, but even the quickest reflexes couldn't always evade Jackson's devastating power.
You got that right. That knockout delivering right hand was a thing of beauty and terror. It landed as Norris was already starting to fall, adding to the impact and making it even more devastating. It was a punch that seemed to defy physics, a testament to the raw, untamed force that Jackson could generate.
Wow, that's incredible power. It's like watching a human highlight reel, a collection of knockouts that showcase the sheer destructive power that a single punch can possess. It's a reminder that in boxing, power can be a great equalizer, capable of overcoming even the most skillful and evasive opponents.
Absolutely. It's a stark reminder that in this sport, even a momentary lapse in concentration can be fatal. And for fighters like Jackson, that one punch could be their defining legacy. Speaking of one-punch knockouts, let's talk about another fighter known for his ability to end a fight in a heartbeat. Ernie Shavers.
Ernie Shavers, the Black Destroyer. He might not have had the most polished boxing skills, but he possessed a right hand that could send shockwaves through the entire boxing world. His knockout of Larry Holmes in 1979 is a perfect example of this.
Oh yeah, that was a huge upset. Holmes, considered one of the best heavyweights of his era, was known for his jab and his technical boxing skills. But even Holmes, a master of defense, couldn't withstand the sheer force of Shavers' right hand in that seventh round. It was a punch that seemed to come out of nowhere, sending Holmes crashing to the canvas in a stunning upset.
Yeah, nobody expected that. That knockout solidified Shavers' reputation as a dangerous puncher, a fighter who could knock out anyone on any given night. It's a reminder that in boxing, power can be a pathway to fame and notoriety, even without championship belts. Sometimes a single punch is all it takes to etch your name in boxing history.
No doubt about it. It's also a testament to the unpredictable nature of the sport. Even the most dominant fighters can be vulnerable to a well-timed, powerful punch. And for fighters like Shavers, that one punch could be their defining legacy. It's what keeps the fans on the edge of their seats, knowing that anything can happen in the blink of an eye. Now for our final knockout in this deep dive, let's fast forward to a more recent example of technical brilliance and power. Deontay Wilder's right-hand knockout of Luis Ortiz in 2019.
Wilder, known for his incredible knockout power, had faced Ortiz in a previous fight, and it had been a tough battle, with Ortiz nearly taking him the distance. But in this rematch, Wilder showed a new level of patience, timing, and accuracy.
He definitely learned from that first fight. Wilder had learned from his previous encounter with Ortiz. He knew that Ortiz was a skilled counterpuncher, so he had to be more cautious, more strategic in his approach. He couldn't just rely on his power. He had to create the opening, set the trap.
And he did. Remember how Wilder had struggled to finish Ortiz in their first fight? This time he found the opening he needed in the seventh round. That right hand was a thing of beauty, perfectly timed and targeted to a small space for maximum impact, sending Ortiz down for the count.
He was out. It wasn't just a power punch. It was a calculated strike, a product of Wilder's improved ring generalship and his ability to adapt to his opponent's style. That knockout solidified Wilder's status as one of the most exciting and dangerous fighters in the heavyweight division, a true knockout artist with a blend of power and technique.
It's incredible how Wilder was able to evolve his style, to become more than just a power puncher. He showed patience, strategy, and an understanding of his opponent's weaknesses. That knockout wasn't just about brute force. It was a testament to Wilder's growth as a boxer. We've seen some incredible moments, haven't we? Reliving these knockout punches that weren't just displays of power, but each one really a story in itself.
Yeah, it's amazing how they kind of stick with you. They become these like almost legendary moments that people talk about and analyze for years.
Yeah. And I think what makes them so interesting is that there's no single formula for, what makes a knockout iconic. It's not just the force. It's really everything else, like the context, the build-ups, all the stories around the fight itself.
Right. I mean, think about the difference between Tyson just destroying Spinks and Foreman, taking apart Moore. Both powerful knockouts, but completely different.
Tyson's was almost primal, tapping into that, raw fear and excitement.
And it was over so fast, left everyone wanting more.
Yeah, whereas Foreman's was more methodical,
Hmm.
showing his experience, his patience.
Yeah, and his ability to outsmart someone much younger than him.
And then you got those knockouts like Shavers beating Holmes, reminding us that in boxing, you never know what's going to happen.
You can have these huge upsets where one punch can change everything.
And that's what keeps us watching, right? You just never know what's going to happen.
And the blink of an eye can all change.
So before we wrap up, I'm curious, what makes a knockout really stand out for you?
I think for me, it's the ones that become something bigger than just the sport itself. Like those real cultural moments. Like Louis over Schmeling, that was about so much more than just a fight.
Yeah, a symbol of hope during a really difficult time.
And it shows how powerful sports can be.
As a way to, talk about social and political issues.
And the athletes become these symbols.
Carrying the hopes of so many people. So anyone listening, I really hope you keep exploring boxing. Go deeper than just the highlights. Learn about the fighters and the history. It's so much more than just a sport.
You'll see it's really a reflection of ourselves. About struggle and ambition.
That's a great way to put it. Well, it's been awesome talking about these legendary moments with you. Until next time, everyone, keep those gloves up.